Now, Suzanne, you're an Order of Australia recipient. You've received a Lifetime Literacy Award by the International Literacy Association, and you're an ambassador and committee member for many various literacy programs. And but sorry, I'm going to say that again. Just
It's all right.
We'll edit that bit out. But before we dive in, we're here today to talk specifically about one of the books in your I Am Jack children's series called Super Jack. And I must say, it's very rare to find a children's book that tackles the dynamics of blended families. So can you start with sharing with our listeners what inspired you to write Super Jack and how it relates to the experiences of blended families?
Well, blended families are a complete minefield. They are traumatic. There's often things such as jealousy, like, why is that man my mother's partner? All those sort of things. But the thing is, with really successful blended families, it's about support. And if the guys, the stepfather, if he really links into the children, believe me, he'll link into the mother, because that's what a mother wants. She wants a partner in life, but she also wants a father figure for her children. That does not mean he becomes the father in terms of punishment and that sort of thing. He becomes a confidant of the kids. He becomes a safe place to go to. So when I wrote Super Jack, the father is super important, because he has the boy Jack and the girl, his sister Samantha. He has their back. He will be there to support them, be the driver of the car when the mother's a bit tired, and involves himself with the jokes and the humour and the culture of that family. And that's really the key role of a blended family. And in fact, it's often the guy who has to work a little bit harder at it than the kids.
Yes, I can imagine that. And I think the book itself, what stood out for me is that it really explores many of the challenges that blended families typically face. So knowing that the step-child relationship is one, as you're touching on now, and how they assimilate themselves into the family, what other aspects of the challenges did you find most important to highlight in the book, and why?
Well, because there's 4 books in the series. I lost the series. But, there's the 4
there we go.
books. And in those 4 books, it deals with the stepfather on every level. In I Am Jack, the stepfather puts his hand on Jack's shoulder as he goes in to face bullying and says, "Do you want me to come in?" And Jack says, "No, I'm all right." But he knows his stepfather has his back. In when the mother in Always Jack gets breast cancer, and of course I got breast cancer because I take from life. These books are fiction, but not very fictional. They seem to follow every drama in my life, which is the drama of all of us. But when I got breast cancer, it's important for the stepfather, to also understand that and how threatening it is for the children. And he is there for them. It's okay, but not in a corny way, not corny. just, you know, being there beside them. And similar in my last Jack book, again, the stepfather is so important, and they actually marry, which is a huge and wonderful acceptance of that role within a family.
Very good. So the whole series goes through various different aspects as they relate to the life of a blended family. And something that I'm curious to ask about is issues from the child's perspective and how they might be addressed in the book as well, which is something that you just don't see very often at all in
Well,
literature.
I do know when I wrote the third book in the series about when I dealt with breast cancer, but it's any cancer. The New South Wales breast cancer, they actually endorsed it by their top doctors, and they very, very rarely put their yellow daffodil on the book. And they did because they said it is one of the rare occasions that it goes inside the child's life, how they feel, where they get support. And often parents, when they face whatever the crisis is, well, this was cancer, they are very self focused. But the child is on the journey too. And it brings that up so that they can understand that it's more than them.
And what about step siblings? Because I know in the story, the father or the stepfather brings with him a child into that blended
Leo,
family, Leo.
it's
So,
complete crisis because it's just terrible because Leo has ownership of one person, his dad, and he sees his dad join into another family and is loved by the two children of, you know, the mother. And so there is huge conflict, and the conflict is often secretive, you know, behind the backs of the parents where they argue and compete. And the thing is, that is normal. And how do you deal with that? And that's part of the book too, to get the boy, Leo, to accept that he's part of a new family. It's very hard, really. But it can work if the parents are aware of this conflict and it's not a conflict due to anything like their relationship or the fact they are blending family, it's due to human reaction. What is this strange man coming into my life?
yes. I know you mentioned the books are written for children in the 8 to 12-year-old age group, but listening to you speak just now, my assumption is that it likely resonates with a broader audience, including parents who
Yes.
would be taking something away from it, no doubt, and potentially even educators as well who are working with children. So, how do you hope the book can be used as a tool for promoting understanding and empathy in blended family situations?
Well, it's used very widely in the education curricula, but the thing is, if readers see it only as a children's book, they're very, very much mistaken. It is a book which goes into their family and brings the teachers and the parents and the adults into the circle of family. Really, really important. And they get a lot of direction in a way, not didactic direction. That's not my way. My way is situations. And they suddenly see, oh, you know, why is Jack behaving like that? Running out or being angry? Why? And they will find the way to resolve these problems. It's better that they know that it is coming and that they can solve it. They can really, really solve it.
And let's talk about some common misconceptions of blended families, because you've lived one
I
yourself and the,
have.
the book is inspired by your own experience.
Mm.
So, are there any common misconceptions or stereotypes about blended families that you aim to challenge through writing the
Well,
book?
yeah, one of the common ones is that you arrive with Leo or whoever it is, and there's Mum with her two kids, and you automatically bond. Forget it. It is not going to happen. What does happen is that you nervously meet the other family. And what is the pathway to smoothing that cohesion? And there are ways like all of you going on a picnic, kicking a soccer ball around. You might think, oh, what's that mean? Well, that's how the kids get to blend by having common experiences, by the father and the mother saying, "Oh, that's really great," to all the kids. So it's really through continual common experiences of happy times, you know? And that is very helpful. The assumption that there won't be jealousy is wrong. There is jealousy. I mean, imagine taking away a parent that you have ownership of and you love. It's jealousy that why is he showing the other children love and respect? Why? It's only me. Well, through these books, it's an opportunity to go through the various scenarios and find your place in them. And that is the most important thing. And they will find their place. They'll suddenly know, oh, why are they hiding those lollies? Why are they, the things of kids. And you will make a blended family, you will, but only if you understand the pitfalls and work slowly towards resolving them so that it becomes a joyous occasion.
Such good advice. I completely agree with that. And a lot of the other guests I've had on the show have said a similar thing, in that you've really got to approach blended family life as a marathon and
Yeah.
not a sprint,
Yes.
and really work on integrating those family experiences and forging new traditions, as well as potentially keeping some of the old ones that you used to have as well.
My background is in child growth and development. And one of the reasons I wrote my I Am Jack books and many others that I've written is because when you counsel kids, which many parents do, it's not really that effective. What is more effective is story journey, jumping in to a story and finding yourself there. And it enables them to challenge themselves. The parents challenge themselves too, but the kids know there are other ways to deal with it.
Oh, it's great. It's an alternative to therapy, isn't it? If you can,
Yes,
you can give them a book and they can really identify with what they're reading and what's going on in their life. It's another way to get them thinking about potential solutions to problems.
because kids do think they are alone. They think these problems are only mine. They haven't got yet a sense that it is a common problem or a common challenge. But when they go into a book and they find they're in that book, they suddenly think, oh, I'm not alone. There are ways to address it. And it's really lovely if a parent and child can read it together because they ask the questions that they cannot formulate normally. But when they have story, they can suddenly ask those questions that needed to be asked, and then a parent can respond.
So good. I'm also curious to ask what other advice you might have for parents or even caregivers who are part of blended families and they're looking for ways to foster an environment that's positive and supportive for the children.
I'm a firm believer when especially younger children that having that personal one-to-one time before bed is essential. You have it with your own parents, the biological one first, and it's a time when the kids feel safe and they can talk. And the thing is, when you have that in a safe environment, don't bring both the parents in and then have a talk. It's very challenging. Bring the one that they are used to, their mum, their dad, and then just chat about how things are, talk about story, and they will give you gold that you will know you can act on. You know,
Yes.
things like, oh, why do you always take the other kids, to the park? And if that's the dad, they might say, do I? Well, that's wrong of me. You have to come next time, you know? So they're continual problem solving opportunities. That's first. The second thing is when the dad or mum has the various kids in the car, it's really a good time not to turn on the digital, plethora you know, of devices, but actually talk about what they're all doing. Resolve problems in that space where they're enclosed, they're trapped, and you
They're
can talk.
captive. Yes. Good
Yeah.
advice. So, coming back to the Super Jack series, have you got plans to write a fifth book?
No, at this stage, look, I'm writing other books. I just wrote a gorgeous little book about who's the gang on our street. It's a narrative nonfiction, and there's all these kids in the picture book and cockies, sulphur crested cockatoos. And it gives a lot of their joy and their miss the bad rap sulphur crested cockatoos are getting, and sort of advice about how they can relate to kids and how we can work together. But the thing is, I mean, I'm always working on a book. The I Am Jack books, which is 4 books, they just work because they actually traverse my life from the first time when my son was bullied and stepdad came onto the scene. Well, it was before we were married, but he comes on the scene and we see the relationship developed. And of course, the first thing that happens is, says Jack, I'm the man of the house. Why is he doing that? Oh, I am. All,
Yes.
all those endless discussions and they say it, they always present their problems uh, in a sense, in a unanswerable way. but you can answer them. So when in Super Jack they're going off up north, having a good time, it's really great. Several things. One, to joke, and often joke about the mother is very irritating, but everyone loves a joke about the mum, and she obviously takes it in her stride because, mums do really, really excellent things like take the children to the supermarket and call out to one of the kids, "Hey, I found the underpants." The kids nearly they think it's so funny, and they said, "Yes, mum, is so embarrassing." And then the dad said, "Yes, she is." "No, I'm not." Just the normal daily interactions of our lives. We just need in blended families to be a little bit extra aware.
In the reviews I've read about your book, a lot of the people who've left the reviews have commented on the realness of your storytelling, and I think that's quite refreshing for people when they're reading these stories because it makes them so relatable. Something I'm curious to ask is whether or why rather you think there hasn't ever been that much written before about blended families, in particular in the children's genre, when we see a lot of books about the nuclear family structure. Do you think there's a reason why there isn't more out there?
Look, I actually agree with you. Blended families are really the norm, at least, I don't know, 50% of it or whatever. A lot of blended families occur. And we should be writing more about it. But for many people, they don't even know how to approach it. For example, when I write my books, it's always from a kid's point of view in that situation and how they will react. And sometimes they react really annoyingly. They, will, not talk to dad or not talk to mum if is the other side, or they react very intuitively and emotionally. And I think for many, they don't really understand you have to write truth. Because when a kid behaves like they do, they have to know it's true. And they find ways to resolve it. I don't know why more people don't write about blended families. Sadly, I think it's not topical, even though so many of our kids are in blended families and it's tough at times. It's not topical. It's not a single parent family, which there are endless books on. It's not a nuclear family, which there's endless books on. There's not a family with a grandparent only. This just becomes not fashionable. But the point is, when kids are living in a blended family, they have an extra layer of conflict and adjustment they need to address.
Well, I'm so glad you have helped them address that, Suzanne, with your books. And just lastly, where can listeners go to get their hands on a copy of either one or all four of the books in the series?
Look, they're online everywhere. It's published by HarperCollins. And so if the books are not in the shop at this moment or whatever, you can go online and get it anywhere. They're just available, really. But yeah, and the shops as well. And of course, I do support independent bookshops, but they can't have every book at every moment. So
Yes.
yeah.
Excellent. Well, we'll make sure we've got a link available in the show notes. Just
Thank you.
lastly, Susanne, is there any last words of advice for those listening who are finding themselves in the thick of a blended family situation with all the various challenges and conflicts that arise?
Well, I have some advice. Make sure you get some time out. It's time for a babysitter to come in or the grandma come in and get some you time with each other, because sometimes these stresses and blending and the conflicts and the joys get overwhelming. My advice is get some me time so that you can refresh your commitment to each other, talk about some of the issues you want to fix, and have a very positive experience in this great family, because when it's blended, it can be more joyous than just a nuclear family, because there's more of the kids to share, and it can be such, like I've seen blended families where the kids are best friends from one family and the other. Really positive. But last advice again, the adults need time out.
Very wise words. Thank you so much. I completely agree with that. And speaking of which, I'm going to make sure we've got some of that blocked out in the calendar. but Susanne, thank you so much for your time. It's just been a joy speaking with you.
And a joy speaking to you.